to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. Do you wonder how your faith fits together with your profession? Well, join us as we explore how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Hello and welcome to Two Roads Crossing. I'm your host, Curtis Gibbs, as we explore the intersection of faith and veterinary medicine, and I'm here with a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Elizabeth Mendoza. EB, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Curtis. It's great to be here and really excited to finally get to be part of the podcast.
So how many people call you EB? That's sort of caught on, hasn't it?
It has. So EB is my maiden name. I was Elizabeth EB, and I think anyone that knows me from my days of just graduating, coming into California, all those people call me EB because I was Dr. EB back then, but it caught on with CVM and I love it because it's just a short, easy name to say, right? EB.
It is, and it somehow sort of fits your personality. It's just fun. Well, I didn't know you before CBM, although maybe I did. Because one thing we realized is we were both in the same place on the same day this one time. There was this time because you went to the University of Tennessee and I went to the University of Georgia. We were in school about the same time. And there happened to be this football game in Athens where the dogs beat up on the volunteers. And I still have the shirt from that day. And I was on the Georgia side and you were in the Tennessee band, right? Didn't you play in the band?
I did. I played trombone and I was at that game and that was a rough day. I cannot believe that you have that shirt.
Yes.
But our claim to fame on that game is that the year prior to that, correct me if I'm wrong, Tennessee beat Georgia at Neyland Stadium. You're going to wear the sweatshirt, of course.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And as I recall, at one of either that game or a game previous to that, Tennessee was able to tear their goalpost down in about 3 seconds. I think it was probably 2 or 3 seconds. And when we went to Sanford, it took y'all quite a while to get those goalposts down. So I'm just saying. But yes, we did lose. We lost. It was bad.
That was the first time in 14 years the dogs had beat you guys. So I got to rush on the field. That was really fun. So that's my one and only field storming, and you were up there with your little trombone just watching, I guess. So our relationship
watching and crying.
And it's fun as you guys play Rocky Top. I mean, it could be 3rd down and 7 and you get 2 yards, Rocky Top. It can be, all right, guys, it's time for us to leave the field. Oh, we actually left the field correctly. Cue up Rocky Top. Oh,
absolutely.
Look, it's the start of the game. It's the end of the game. It's the minute 3 of the game. Cue up Rocky Top. You guys have any other songs you play in the band, or is it just the one?
No, that is the only one. That's the only one we learn. We can play it forwards, backwards in our sleep, but that's it.
Love it. All right. Well, it's fun to talk trash, and it's certainly fun to wear a shirt that I have from the year 2000. So yikes, I just dated us there. But so that was undergrad, I guess. But you went on to vet school at Tennessee, right?
I did. I was in the class of 2005. And I started veterinary school in 2001, so about just a month prior to September 11th, that date. So that was kind of a big piece of world history that happened right as I started veterinary school. And that was even before the days of cell phones, really. So, but yeah, I was in the class of 2005 and we were a small class. We had about 62 people then, I believe. So we were really close-knit class, and that's all I ever wanted to do as a child and as growing up was to be a veterinarian. All my little posters from 2nd grade and 3rd grade, what do you want to be when you grow up? I wanted to be a vet. So I don't think I really ever considered anything else. I don't know what I would have done had that not worked out for me.
So you knew going all the way back then, even as a kid,
I did. Yep. And I loved animals, but much to my dismay, we are not allowed to have animals as pets growing up. So we had some goldfish. That was about it. Maybe that's why I wanted to be a veterinarian, so I could have all the animals, right?
All the animals. Nobody could stop you. Yeah. There you go. Well, you even have, you're continuing with the animal art on the wall. I see a Tennessee eared cow behind you there. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yep. We like our black cows here in Tennessee. So, except if you notice that the flag, the stars on the Tennessee emblem are not correctly lined up. So, any of my Tennessee friends that are watching this or listening, I apologize. Those stars aren't supposed to be flat across the top like that.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
there you go. I
Yeah.
don't think I would have noticed, but again, I'm from this state right here, so there you go. So graduate. What what did you go into? I mean, you have a cow behind you, but did you do large? Did you do small? What did you head into?
Yeah. It's interesting how life always throws twists and curves. My dream, again, in veterinary school was to become an equine veterinarian and to work on horses and large animal. And we didn't have tracking programs back in that day in vet school, so we still did all the different rotations. But I, through some life circumstances towards the end of veterinary school, I actually decided to move away from equine and head into small animal. And I decided that I didn't want to work 90 hours a week as an equine veterinarian. My impression, was being on call all the time. So I said, well, I'll switch to small animal. So I call that the dark side. I went to the dark side of small animal. And the funny thing is that when I graduated from veterinary school, I ran off to California and got a small animal job out there, which was great, but it was at an emergency, 24-hour emergency and general practice. And I actually ended up working about 60 to 75 hours a week as a small animal practitioner, probably weeks where there were more hours. So I still ended up working just as much. But, sometimes you just need to get a fresh start and you need to, just go somewhere to kind of become your own person. I was pretty young when I graduated. I think I was the youngest person in my class. I was still the ripe age of 24 years old for that
Yeah.
first patient that Dr. Eby walked into that room having no idea what I was doing or what to do.
Yeah, and for those that aren't geography buffs, Tennessee and California are not exactly next door to each other, so that's a different part of the country. Shout out to Dr. Johnson too, who, by the way, you worked with at some point out there. He'll
Yeah.
probably listen to this. Well, so after, I have to brag on you too. I found out when you got this job at CVM, which we'll come to that here in a little bit, but that you had won an award out there in California as like, you know, so I got to
I
brag on you for that. But I mean, you did something well to be recognized in that way. Um, what do you think it does, whether it's you or others? What makes a good veterinarian?
That's a great question. And I think the answer to that in my mind has probably grown and changed over the years. So this May, just a couple months from now, I'll actually hopefully be attending my 20-year reunion of graduation from veterinary school. And so coming out of school, I thought a great veterinarian is going to be someone who knows their stuff. They know their diseases. They can look at a case and say, oh, this is what's going on. Or a veterinarian can be someone, a great veterinarian can be someone who is confident when they go into that surgery room, that surgical case. A great veterinarian is someone who can give drug doses off the top of their head. And all of that is true. But through my career, I've really learned and I think can nail down and say that a great veterinarian is first and foremost someone who cares about the animals that are in front of them, and as hard as it is, someone who cares about the people who are attached to those animals. And we do have to be very careful there because I think a great veterinarian is also someone who cares for themselves, who knows when they need to take a break, is able to set some constructive boundaries within their career so that they can care for those animals and for those patients and the clients as well. And so it's really become so much more of a relational job
Mhm.
than sometimes a job of knowledge. And I know this is cliche and probably many people have heard this phrase, but it's so true. The phrase that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that's why a lot of us get into some of this compassion fatigue. But I think it's a true statement, right? When we care, people are really thankful for that.
Yeah.
Just got to
Yeah.
be careful on where you draw your boundaries.
Yeah. I hear you there. I mean, people that come into the, exam room, they're there because they can't fix this animal. They can't, and so, but they also want to know that you care about it. A lot of times they're scared. A lot of times they might have financial issues you don't know about. Who knows what's going on in the background of their lives. And veterinarians have such, and vet technicians and in practice men all have such like important touches in the people's lives that come in through the door. Um, well, so you were practicing in vet med, but here you are at CVM entering year 6, 7, somewhere in that range.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's a different change. That's not exactly in the small animal clinic anymore. So what drew you to come into CVM to be a region rep?
That's also a great question. Just take a second
You
to
know?
think about that. Uh, so I practiced in California from 2005 until 2014. At that point, I had gotten married in 2013, and we welcomed my husband Jaime and I welcomed our first child, Elena, in 2014. And we both had this heart for agriculture, for raising our children in a place where they could run and play. And so we decided in 2014 to move from California back to Tennessee because we thought, well, we could maybe get a little piece of land. We could raise some kids, raise some cows. We thought that would be easy. It's not easy raising kids or cows, right? Um, so we moved back to Tennessee, and I came back and got a job in a couple different small animal practices, one that was more in the city and one that was a little bit more rural. And both of those were quite the culture shock coming from Southern California in the land of, massive emergency hospitals at that time, and, all these great big procedures that were done on small animals, back to here I am working on farm dogs and farm cats.
Yeah.
And so I think that really helped broaden my heart and broaden my horizon for veterinary medicine. And we were kind of going along, and becoming a mother was the hardest thing that I have ever done in my entire life. I tell people I could have gone to veterinary school 4 times over as compared to becoming a mother. Now, that being said, praise the Lord, that was 10 years ago, and man, has he worked on my heart, and I absolutely love motherhood now. It's very challenging, but I love it. But that was difficult. I was Dr. Eby, who was this veterinarian, not by who I was, but who God made me to be this great veterinarian in Southern California. And I come to Tennessee with this little baby, my identity had to change. So that move from from California back to Tennessee really represents a huge change in my identity, from being someone who is very independent, a quote, very good veterinarian, to someone who was broken and had no idea what she was doing. But I think that's exactly where God wanted me to be, so that he could prepare my heart for the next step of my life journey, which was coming on board with CVM. And so as we moved back and I was really struggling, I actually had another baby in 2016, Jeremiah. So I had 2 kids, and my mom for many years had been kind of hinting and pushing me to join a Bible study called Bible Study Fellowship. It's a worldwide Bible study that meets during the school year once a week, and we study really intensely a certain subject in the Bible or one book of the Bible. And so finally I said, okay, Mom, I'm really struggling. I'll join this Bible study. And that year that I joined BSF, we were studying the book of Romans. And through reading and studying the book of Romans and kind of being where I was at this point in my life, like, I'm a mom now and I'm a veterinarian, God, what do you want me to do? Because this is a lot and I don't really know what to do. He put the idea of missions and maybe even working in ministry on my heart.
Hmm.
And I've always had a heart for missions. I served while I was in Southern California. I served in Mexico with my church. And so that was something that had been there. But I think the Lord really brought that back to the surface as something that was centrally important to who he had created me to be. And so I started praying and listening to Christian radio, which I'm not downing any other type of music, but man, when I turned that dial on a regular basis from country music, which I love, over to listening to Christian radio, 95% of the time, man, my perspective just really changed.
Hmm.
So I started praying and listening to Christian music on my long commutes down to my rural job down in Southeast Tennessee. And I was praying, and I remember driving one day thinking like, all right, God, you've brought me here. What do you want me to do? And then I think the very next day or the very next week, I saw a job posting, or maybe it was Lauren Charles that told me about the job posting from CVM, that CVM was hiring a region rep. Now, I knew about CVM through Dr. Lauren Charles, who's now our Fearless U.S. Ministries Director, because she and I graduated veterinary school the same year. She was at Auburn, I was at Tennessee, and we had some faculty that we mutually knew. And so I already knew who she was and had been loosely kind of following her and following CVM since graduation. And so I didn't even really know what a region rep was or did. All I know is it was working with Christian Veterinary Mission. And I picked up the phone and called Lauren. I'm like, what is this? I want this. I want to do this. This is awesome. And so she gave me the information, and I thought, wow, this is a door that God is opening. I've been praying. He's opening a door. I'm going to give it a try. And throughout the interview process and throughout the application process, there was a lot of questions about missions and what type of missions have you been involved in? And I'm thinking, wow, a lot of these people on CVM staff, they've been long-term missionaries overseas. Mm-hmm. That's not me. I've been in a clinic and I've had some hard times over the past 9 or 10 years. I may not be the best ambassador for Christ in this working 60 hours a week clinic and, just being stressed out all the time. But I was honest in my interviews, and it was totally the Lord putting it in your all's hearts to select me as the region rep. And so that's kind of how I came on board with CVM. And looking back over that long of a time, it's really neat to see what God has done in my life. I mean, just looking at myself for a second, like what God has done in my life over the last 7 years. And I cannot comprehend where I would be without all that he has done in my life in that amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, we showed up for the interview, which we probably tried to talk you out of. Who knows? I think you were 11 and a half months pregnant at that point. How does that that was what, number 3?
That was kid number 3. Yep.
Yeah. Showed up in Seattle, like probably shouldn't have flown right on the line. Maybe shouldn't have flown. But that was that was so good. And we're so glad we did select you. So what's it been like being a region rep? I mean, what have you taken away from these 6.5 or whatever it is years so far, serving alongside all these people in the vet profession?
It has been incredible. The people that I've gotten to meet over the last 6.5 years are some of the most caring and dedicated people who live life on mission. I'm just thinking about it, like it just fills my heart with so much joy. Getting to meet the Bill Rischels of this world. I could go through and list.
I knew that name was coming. Yep.
Yeah. so many people. But getting to work with the students has been great, because when I was a veterinary student, my life and my walk with the Lord was in a very dark and different place than it is now. So I was not involved with CVF. I had a dear friend, Dr. Jenny Epling, who is in my class. She so faithfully would invite me to the CVF meetings almost every week, at least every few months. She would say, "Hey, we're having a CVF meeting." And I would always think of some excuse as to why I couldn't go. So to see these veterinary students putting Christ first, even while they are going through the trials and the difficult seasons of school, it just gives me so much hope for our profession for the future. It gives me excitement to know that, yes, they're going to face the same hard times in this profession that I have, or similar times, but they're going to be much more prepared because they have Christ in the forefront of their mind, and they have a community of Christian believers around them, whether it's their school classmates or their faculty advisors, and just that connection throughout the CVM family, so getting to see these connections formed at Real Life, Real Impact, at the CVM Veterinary Conference. I mean, man, these students are going to succeed because they put the Lord first. And that's really exciting. I also just love the professionals, just hearing, we have professionals who are newer graduates. We have professionals who have been out and maybe they're retired. And so just hearing the stories of their practice, hard times that they've been through, how they've walked through that, and then them passing that down to the generations below them. I feel so thankful because I get to sit back and watch this, like we get to see these things happen. And so it's just really neat to get to see the interactions and the relationships. And CVM, while we are growing, which is awesome, praise the Lord, we're still a small organization. So if you pour into the organization, you're going to get to know so many people. And so when we go somewhere, when we travel somewhere, I'm like, oh, I know. So, I know this doctor who lives on the road to this place. And, I don't ever think I would be alone or lonely. I could just pick up the phone and call someone pretty close by.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So, serving in CVM and serving as a region rep, that's not as many spays and neuters. It's a lot of more pastoral and kind of ministerial, connecting, that kind of thing. What have you learned about um, yourself, or what it's like to serve kind of in a more ministry role? Because, that's probably I mean, not it's almost a new journey for that to be your main part of your profession, of your calling at that point.
I've learned that it's hard. Um, as a veterinarian, or even any role in this profession, we're trained to diagnose a problem, and we're trained to fix the problem or think of ways to fix it. But in a ministry role, life is not often fixed by a short little check the box, make a quick phone call. And so that has been hard to learn. And a lot of that, if I have a colleague, a professional, a student who is in a place of hurting, I genuinely care and I want to fix their problem, right? That's how God wired me to be. I want them to feel better or have joy or find a blessing in and amongst the storm. But what I've learned, and I still have a long way to go on this, is that many times we just need to sit in the trenches with someone who's hurting. We just need to sit in the rain with them, whether that's on the phone or through text message. And we need to listen and oftentimes not offer advice. And being a mom of young kids, that's hard because I'm used to firing off that advice, do this, do that. And so I think that working in ministry has helped me to slow down to listen and to really try to, you use this phrase a lot, walk alongside. And I think it's such a beautiful phrase because when you're walking alongside with someone, well, maybe sometimes you do have to lead them. Maybe sometimes they lead you, but you're kind of in this together. And I think in this crazy world that we live in, when we know that we have someone who will walk with us, and even if it's just for a short season or one difficulty that we're having in life, it's so encouraging. And so for me to kind of be in that role has again a big change in my identity. This is what God called you to. That also can, again, be difficult when we pour ourselves out so much into others because we care. Mm-hmm. How do we fill our cup? How do we look to Christ for that, so that he can fill us with compassion? But it has, again, given me a love for people and an understanding of a lot bigger problems that people walk through that I probably was not fully aware of prior to being in this role. And it's also interesting and can be encouraging to others. We may hear of students who are, let's say, facing some persecution on their college campus for being believers. And it's encouraging when I can say, hey, at this school, you guys might be feeling that, but guess what? At this school over here, they're feeling that too. You're not alone in that. These are problems, common difficulties that we see amongst veterinary students, or the professionals, all the professionals who are looking for, veterinary technicians and practice managers and veterinarians to hire because they're just desperate. We need people working our clinics. These are common difficulties that we see, that we can listen and maybe help make connections or help give advice if we have helpful advice. But probably better to listen if we
There
can.
you go.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of being in a kind of a pastoral role, you are about to do something that is common in pastoral roles, especially around year 6, year 7, which is have a sabbatical. And so tell us a little bit about that part of your journey and what that might look like.
Yes, another, I guess, big page turn, big new chapter in my life is that at the end of February, I am stepping down as the North Central Region Rep for CVM, which is very bittersweet. Still hard to even get those words out sometimes because it's hard to believe. But I will be taking a period of about 4 months to try to rest and really lean into the Lord and kind of see what he has next for my husband and I and our family, and how he would have us serve, whether moving forward in a different role with CVM or going back to practice or working in the community somehow. I don't know if I mentioned, but I do have 4 children. Their ages are 4 to 10, and 3 of them are homeschooling age now. And we are homeschooling, kind of a hybrid model with a co-op. And so to homeschool 3 kids and to do the travel and all the pastoral and ministerial care that this role needs, it has just gotten to be too much for myself, for me to do. And for a long time, I fought that. And it's really neat to see how the Lord sustained me for all these years, basically doing the homeschooling and doing the traveling. But this past fall, it kind of just fell apart, I guess, in my heart and in my mind. And I said, I can't do this anymore. And I think the Lord was there with me with open arms to say, I love you. And no, you need to take a step back and rest, and I will guide you. And so in this kind of period of 4 months, there's so many wonderful opportunities. I mean, as a veterinary professional, again, technician, practice manager, veterinarian. We have so many different job type opportunities that we could do. We don't have to be in clinical practice. We get to work for CVM. There's a lot of opportunities. But I think for the first time in my life, the Lord is saying to me, Elizabeth, I don't want you to have a plan. I've always had a plan. Maybe if you are like me and you wanted to go to vet school since you were 4 years old and you did that and you're a veterinarian or whatnot, like we've always had a plan. And so in this 4 months, I think for the first time in my life, I have to have a mustard seed size of faith to say, God, I don't know what you have planned. I really don't know what you have planned for us. But I have the hopeful expectation that you're going to show up in really big ways in my heart, in my home, in my marriage, with my family. And I'm really excited for that. And every time I want to say, oh, I could do this after my sabbatical, I could take this job, I have to take a step back and say, no, God is calling me to rest and to wait. And in order to do that, I was thinking about this Bible story, when the Israelites went to cross the Jordan River, not the Red Sea, but the Jordan, they had to put their foot in the Jordan before God parted the Jordan. And so when they did that, it's like you take one step, God will show you the next step. You take that step, God will show you the next step. And I don't think that I could look back on my life and ever say that I have knowingly made that choice to wait and see where God leads me. Because I am my father's daughter and I always have to have a plan and have everything, set out before me, which is great. The Lord has allowed me to accomplish a lot in 44 years. But I think he's saying, are you going to trust me? And that's very exciting. It's a little scary because I'm human, right? Where, what happens at the end of 4 months, I probably am going to need to have some form of a paycheck or something. But that trust is something, and maybe because I'm hard-headed, it has taken me this long to say, okay, God, I'm ready to go where you want me to go. And again, leading me into this role in CVM, this is where he wanted me because, some of my qualifications were probably not exactly what the role of a perfect region rep would have been, but God led me here. So I don't want to say God hasn't led me through my life. He absolutely has. But now I really just want to give him the reins and see where it goes.
That's you're right. I mean, and that's such a brave and faithful mustard seed step, as you say, but that can be so hard to do, especially, the profession is characterized as, again, more type A, more people have, and you're like, well, just having a plan is just being responsible, and it is, but there are times when you realize, that, I mean, that's got to be hard to say, God, I'm not in control, you are, and just put your toe in that water, not knowing where it's gonna take you.
Yeah.
Well,
so maybe you can interview me again on the other side and I can share what God learned.
I like it.
What I learned from God.
I like it. I like it. Well, in the meantime, one of your people is going to be stepping into the role, as she's raising support to do so. Anyway, tell us about Ashley.
Awesome. Yes. Dr. Ashley Probst is a dear, dear sister in Christ who I met through CVM at my very first Real Life, Real Impact, I believe, back in early 2019. And she lives in southwestern Minnesota in a little agriculture town called Worthington. And she is going to be raising support to come on board as the new North Central Region Rep. Every time I visited Minnesota, South Dakota, I've stayed with her. We've done conferences together. I think she's spoken at almost every real life real impact that we've hosted in our region. And so she just has a heart for people. She has a heart to advance the Lord's work through CVM in our region. And it's great because she lives in the region. So I'm so excited. She can, serve people to a lot more intimately than I was able to. And I'm very excited. And her husband Tyler is a great man, wonderfully supportive of her in this role. And so I'm excited to see what God will do through the two of them over the next little bit.
All right. Well, cheers to that. All right. Well, uh, let me ask you two questions then, because I think we will have to maybe do a post sabbatical and just see what's going on there. And who knows? I mean, you may be chilling on the beach. No, you may have, you know, but you're gonna get some cow therapy in there. At least you'll be able to spend some time with the cows and the kids there. There you go. So, what do you love about veterinary medicine?
I love animals and I love people. And that's just as simple as it comes. I love that there are hard days and there are joyful days, and we really get to help people and animals when they're at their best, and we get to help people and animals when they're having their worst day.
Mm.
And God asks us as veterinary professionals to fill that role. And those are some big shoes to fill. And man, I couldn't do it without my faith in Christ.
What have you loved about CVM and working at CVM? I didn't prep you for that one.
Yeah. I love the relationships. I love, you know, overseas and in the US, just hearing these stories of what God is doing in people's lives. And I love seeing the connections. Whether it's, hey, I've got 5 extra stethoscopes that I don't need anymore. Can they go overseas? Oh, yes, I know someone who's going to Bolivia next month. Here you go. Let's get them shipped off. I mean, you think about all the kind of grassroots stuff that goes on in this organization, and you just can't help but be overwhelmed by the goodness of God that He orchestrates everything, all these connections. And so again, just getting to be part of it is what I love, getting to see that, to see those relationships and my friends. And then the other best part about CVM is colleagues like you. It's fun to have a friend, and Lauren and all the region reps. It's awesome. I love to be part of our region rep team. It's been great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why people like us have stuck around for 7 years, 6 years. It's a great place to be and to work, and the people, even Bill Rischel, even the people that you have to, they're all amazing. All right, what's one last thing you'd like to say to encourage those watching or listening?
I just want to encourage, I'm a mom of young children, and I'm a veterinarian. And so I want to encourage people who may be in that season of life to give yourself grace, to put one foot in front of the other. And when it's not perfect, when there's days when you cry or you feel like you might only get one out of 100 things done, that His mercies are new every morning, and we will get through this, and we keep looking up. And I also wanted to share my verse that my ministry, it's not my ministry, the Lord's ministry that He has given me is called Standing on Hope. And the reason that I named the ministry Standing on Hope for all these years is that I have a tattoo on my foot, which I guess I won't be able to show everyone, but it's in Hebrew. And it says Yachal, and it means hope. And I've asked some people, they said it does mean hope.
Sure.
But that idea of standing on the hope of Jesus has been something that has been central to who I am, but even looking at where God has brought me over the last 20 years since I graduated from veterinary school, is that I'm still standing on the hope of Christ. And Hebrews 10:23 was the verse for the ministry, and it says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, because he who promised is faithful." So we hold on because God is faithful. And so for those people, even if you're not a mom, if you're not a veterinarian and you're listening to this, you're probably struggling with something. Many of us are, but we hold unswervingly to that hope, not because we're strong, not because all our troubles are going to go away on this side of heaven, but because he who promised is faithful.
Well, cheers to that, Evie. Well, we'll end it here. We're just grateful for all that you've given to CVM over these years and the people you served, and we're excited for this next season for you. And I think it's a great example of trusting in God, taking care of yourself, all of the above that we all need to do on this side of heaven. So, well done on you, and thanks for being a great example even in that. We love you. We're excited about your sabbatical, and we'll be checking in.
Thank you for listening to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. If you were blessed by this content, like and subscribe so that you are alerted when new content is released. If you would like more information about CVM, or if you have questions, comments, or topical suggestions, you can find us online at www.cvm.org. Or you can contact us by emailing podcast@cvm.org. God has a plan for the nations, and that plan includes you. We pray that CVM has encouraged you to live out your calling with confidence and competence. So, until next time, may the voice of the shepherd ring loud and clear as you follow him in faith to the intersection of two roads crossing.